Welcome back to Balanced Basketball Academy, everybody, and today we are talking about the Detroit Pistons, the #1 team in the Eastern Conference right now, and one of the best teams in the world. And for those of you who've been watching Pistons basketball for the last couple of years, this is no surprise to you. They've been building a nice little roster for the last couple of years, 3 to 5 years or so. They've been building this team, and now they've got a really cohesive unit that is playing really fun basketball, but also just really fun to watch and an excellent, well-structured basketball as well. There's a reason why these guys are looking like contenders, and we're going to get into that. I'm going to cover 3 games in this video. 1 against the Celtics, 1 against the Cavs, and 1 against the Knicks. All 3 of them were wins for the Pistons. We're going to break down how they beat some of these top teams that they will likely be seeing in the playoffs and possibly even the Eastern Conference Finals. Before we get into that, please like, subscribe, pull this thing out of the algorithm pit, void, whatever you want to call it. Just doesn't cost you anything, and it really helps out the channel. I appreciate it. Let's get right into the video. Cade Cunningham is really patient when it comes to his ball handling and his playmaking abilities. This can be found in a lot of clips, but we're going to start off strong with a clip where he does that right here in the second possession Detroit has. So this first screen comes kind of from Robinson, but the first real screen comes from Duren. Duren sets that screen, Jordan Walsh gets through. Okay, no worries. Good on the Celtics, good defensive play there. But Duren knows that in order to get this play to start running, he has to reset another screen. Fresh screen. He can't just roll and, go off and do his own thing. So he sets that second screen. Cade waits for it. A lot of guards will just try and force something. They're not waiting for that second screen. So this is kind of a guard post communication that's really good to see. There's that second screen. Good. Now, because the screen is such an overpowered move in basketball, it can a lot of times create situations in which help defense has to come over. Peyton Pritchard is all the way away from his guy right here. That's Duncan Robinson. Duncan Robinson can make threes pretty well, but Pritchard is so focused on Cunningham and what's going on over here with him and Duren that he ends up getting distracted, and so that pass comes over, and it ends up in a pretty open 3 for Robinson. Another opportunity in which Cade sees the first screen, doesn't like it, and waits for the second screen. This is a good amount of patience right here. So Ausar Thompson tries to get into semi-transition right off the gate from this clip. He doesn't find what he's looking for, and so he passes it out. Immediately they get into offense. They're just going smooth into that offense. Detroit's really good at transitioning from their transition offense right into their regular set plays and getting great stuff out of it. Sets that first screen. Walsh gets over the top again. Not quite what he's looking for. Thompson clears out. That's okay. Duren comes up because Cade is resetting, so he recognizes body language. I'm going to set another screen because Thompson just cleared out. Sets a screen. Walsh gets caught. Cade's a really great three-point shooter. Hits that nice dribble-in 3. That's bread and butter for a guard off the dribble. That's like one of the most key shots. Like similar to how a hook shot is like a big deal for a post player, an off the dribble 3-point shot is huge for point guards and shooting guards. So great stuff from there. Good patience from Cade. He's not rushed. He's very patient. He moves at his own tempo. He's not a slow guard. Like he's fast, but he is not being sped up by the defense. That's abundantly clear right here. So Walsh has consistently tried to close the gap and get through screens so he can guard him all the way through and avoid those pull-up 3s. That's fair. The issue is that if you overcommit, you can leave the screen reject side wide open, and that's exactly what happens right here. So Walsh is trying to, again, close that gap, get through that screen that he knows is coming from Tobias Harris. I can't read lips from, this camera angle and, this, 1080p, right? But I'm pretty sure that Derek White said that there's a screen coming where he saw it out of the corner of his eye. So he knows. He's not just doing this, right? Cunningham just spins, and suddenly this becomes a 2-on-1 situation with Cunningham, who's coming down this way, Celtics defender down the middle, and Duren, who's going to be slashing right for the rim. So it's a 2-on-1 because you have 3 players caught up all on that backside. Those guys can't really impact the offense or the defense, so it changes the game. Dribbles in, Duren catches that lob, great stuff. Defense is always played as a team. So one guy might do a lot of the work on defense, and another guy gets the steal, or another guy gets the block. So when people factor in, like, oh, this guy gets a ton of blocks or a ton of steals, that's probably accurate to some degree as to how good of a player they are, but it also is dictated by how good the team is. Brown is getting this drive right here. Thompson is the last guy around. Thompson basically fouls Jaylen Brown, but he does make his life very tough, right? He does it in a way where the hand on the shoulder is pretty brief, and the refs don't catch it. Okay, he's slowed Jaylen Brown. He's done his job. He doesn't necessarily have to block him. He doesn't necessarily have to foul him. You just got to slow him down. Then the other Pistons defenders can be in the picture, right? If Thompson had not delayed Brown, he probably would have gotten there well before those other 3 guys could have gotten around. But in this case, he is delayed, and that leads to a nice block because Duren's able to rise up and get that thing off the glass. Off-ball movement is such a wonderful thing that makes NBA offenses literally impossible to defend at times because there's just so much stuff going on the defense can't catch up. And especially after just covering the Lakers, watching the Pistons in these Pistons games is a breath of fresh air. Let's take a look at what I mean. Cunningham gets this ball up here. Walsh is on him, but he does end up drawing 2, which means that Harris is going to be open in this corner, or this wing area over here. But he notices, Thompson, that is, notices that the eyes are locked on Cunningham from Jaylen Brown. Meaning, if your defender's showing you the back of your head, they can't see you. So you can move off ball and find a gap. Thompson cuts back this way because his defender can't see him. You have to be able to see ball and man, which is a really difficult concept. It's simple when you say it out loud, but it's very difficult to execute. And so it turns into a layup because Cunningham draws 2. Because he draws 2, now Tobias Harris relocates to the corner. Brown thinks, oh, he's open, I gotta go out to the corner, forgets about his own man on the baseline, and that turns into a nice little jump shot right there. All because Cunningham penetrated the defense, got some movement going on, and now the defenders have to focus on multiple things at once. This is a basic principle of defense. And a lot of times it can create major gaps if it's not done properly, but it is done properly here by the Pistons, and it's just done automatically. And NBA defenses, when they're at their best, just make these rotations without really even thinking or without really even having to over-communicate it. And this is really cool to watch. Simons comes off of this pick, right? Thompson is caught in the screen. Duren has to step up, okay? So Duren has to step up right here. Thompson is coming around, trying to get back in front. Cade Cunningham, now, because this is what's happened, now he has to be the help side. So he can't chill out here. Instead, he comes inside the paint, and he has his eyes on what's going on all over here. Cool. Great. This is good. Now, Duren is passed off, or excuse me, Thompson has passed off Simons to Duren, and he contests. Great. Cade Cunningham comes all the way over and bodies up number 88, which I can't identify right now, because he's helping the helper. That can't be an easy lob, right? If Simons tried to throw that lob, Cunningham would be there and would contest the play or possibly foul or maybe, tip it or something, but he's there. That's the point. What? And then you're like, okay, well, he's leaving this guy wide open. Gonzalez is wide open. Gonzalez is a rookie. And Cade Cunningham knows that the layup threat is far more important than the three-point threat. Get rid of that, help the helper first, then make a nice hard closeout. that's a great priority to have, and it's just an example of, when you're doing that screen, what's the backside rotation look like? Cunningham did that right there just automatically. Here. Duncan Robinson sets this back screen. Right here. This is Robinson. He's setting this back screen on Derek White. That creates a switch in which Simons has to take on, I think that's Thompson that's cutting down here. I cannot see him right now. So those two guys are going to go together. Okay, cool. What happens next? Great. Then there's a second screen action. So White has been caught on the top side because there's just been this one-to-one switch. This is temporarily a bad situation. Normally, again, Derek White would try and get to the bottom side of Robinson or something like that, but he also probably doesn't want Robinson to come around for with a screen here and then come around for an open three, because Robinson is a three-point threat, but he is overcompensating right here, and he's caught in a bad position because of where the switch put him. Now, Robinson can just cut back door and reject the screen from Stewart and gets this layup right here. Double screen actions are really, really nice because it forces a double switch a lot of times, especially if you're going from guard to guard kind of things. Sometimes it's not the first screen that gets you open. It's the second screen, because there's two tiers of communication that have to happen, and it has to be perfect both times. In this case, that first screen action, the switch was clean enough to prevent Thompson from getting a bucket, but Derek White got put out of position, and Robinson was smart enough to recognize this is where I have to go next. Off-ball screen actions, they're great stuff, and I really love it when I see NBA offenses running it. Cade is unique in this way that he will post up a lot more than a lot of other point guards will. He has a decent size, and he is comfortable in that post-up area. And post-up game from inside outside can create these wonderful three-point opportunities, and this is a great example of that right here. So Cade is already working hard in that post-up. This is a great post-up, just to say that right out the gate. Great stuff. He's got great position. He's holding really well, holds onto that ball, and because he's so deep into the paint, he draws two players. And because of that, Javonte Green gets a nice wide open three because he relocates to the corner, gets in Cade's sightline, and makes that three. A post-up can be such a wonderful way to draw an extra defender, suck everybody into the paint, then make passes out for open threes. And if you have decent three-point shooting like you do from somebody like Javonte Green, you're going to make a lot of buckets with that. You're going to notice NBA players on the Pistons, I'm going to point this out a couple times, contest really well in three-point attempts, and they do it in a very intelligent way. Here, Tobias Harris comes from the side and jumps forward. He's not jumping into a player at all, and he makes a really good contest on Jalen Green's three. Now, be careful doing like that, something like that around Luka or Shea, or else they might die. But in this case, he does a really great contest right here, gets around the screen, and is able to alter the shot in a smart way. We're going to pull out a couple more contest clips later, but just something to keep in mind. The Detroit Pistons really do well when it comes to getting a hand up for three-point shooters. Another post-up example, this time Cade is the benefit of it. Tobias Harris kind of pulls himself into a post position right there and draws the attention of the help side defenders. Right here. Oh, that's not a great line. Let's try that again. Draws the attention and the eyes of the defender right over there. And because of that, Cade Cunningham is left all by his lonesome all the way up here. You can see this. Like, there's a lot of ball watching. Now, this guy ball watching, that's fine. Brown ball watching, that's fine because he could spin and go that way. But here, just kind of pulling in. Typically on post-up stuff like that, you don't want to double, but it's really easy to get kind of caught up on what's going on outside of your own player, and that inside-outside pass leads to a nice open three for Cade. Look at that closeout right there. Really great stuff. Another good closeout from Cade. when somebody's committing to a shot right there, sometimes you just got to run hard, fly out there, make their lives a little bit more difficult. Now, it's not a controlled closeout per se, but when the guy's already in the air, he's shooting the basketball. Anything you can do to alter the shot without fouling is beneficial. Derek White loses sight of him, not for long, but just for a little bit right here, because he's focused on the Cade Cunningham bit. There's a screen and roll action, so the backside is very focused on the ball. And Thompson, not a strong three-point shooter. I think he shoots like 29% from three. It's not good for NBA standards. No, hey, my guy's got his head turned. My strength is to get to the cup and score a bucket. So, just decides to use that right there. Really strong cut, gets a full head of steam, and nice athletic finish. This is a really great example of you don't necessarily have to reach to get steals. You just have to be there. He's there defensively. He's not reaching, right? He's using his hands, sure, but it's not to the point where I would even consider it really a foul. He's playing really solid defense, and he's staying in the space of Peyton Pritchard. And because of that, Pritchard makes a mistake, and that's where he's able to capitalize. Right? This is not a play that is created because he did some kind of crazy trickery and some steals like that. A lot of times, trying to poke the ball away or reach, it's not only a gamble as to whether or not you'll get it, but it's a gamble as to whether or not the ref decides that they're going to call it, regardless if it's a foul or not. Sometimes playing good defense just can lead to steals because you're just in the space already and you're just putting consistent pressure on them. That's super important. Look at that defense. Really great defense from the perimeter to the post from Stewart. Overcommits on the closeout. Here comes the attack. Keeps his hands back. He's using his chest to stop Evan Mobley. Now when Mobley tries to pull back, he doesn't just fly backwards. He has really great core control, keeps himself in the play, and stays physical, using his body primarily and his hands as a secondary. A lot of times players will flip that order and they'll use their hands first and then their body second. Because of that, they end up with a lot of reach-in fouls. They end up getting blown by. Really awesome stuff from Stewart. I want to talk about the Duncan Robinson cut. Robinson, this is a key, and he executes this really well. If you're cutting, if you're trying to make a cut, if you can cut in front of your defender, then that means that you're going to, you get your angle, you're going to be able to have, a nice lane to the rim. If the defender bumps you and cuts you off, which is what you're supposed to do as a defense, a lot harder to make that pass. But if you can get in front of him, you win. So, guess what the defense is doing again? Defense is ball watching. You got the head turned right here, watching as to whatever Isaiah Stewart's doing over here. I drew that line a little high, but we're going to live with it, okay? So because of that, Robinson sees that Stewart's in a little bit of trouble there, decides to make a cut, gets in front of his guy, and that's all there is to it. Makes that easy layup because by the time Mobley realizes that Robinson's there, the pass has already been made, the ball's already in the air, it's too late, and so benefits to off-ball movement right there, and that's just a key. Get in front of that defender, and you're going to have a much easier time and possibly a bucket. I have a couple clips of Paul Reed in this game and the next game because they are missing Jalen Duren. This matchup happened on the 4th. The next one we'll watch happened on the 5th. No Jalen Duren, so their backup is Paul Reed. Reed is really solid as far as just hustle plays go. That is an example right there. Grabbing rebounds, just attacking the boards, and getting up a really solid little hook shot to end up finishing the play. He does a lot of stuff like that, little hustle things that I just wanted to point out. This play doesn't end up in a made bucket, but Reed does save the possession with that rebound. This is the sort of thing that there's plenty of athletic guys out there that can make a play like this. It's just a matter of, are you willing to do that? Are you willing to put your body on the floor for a layup or a rebound or anything of that matter? A save. It doesn't end up in a bucket, sure, but the effort is still something that I wanted to point out, and it's really cool to see, and that's the kind of effort that is really present around this Detroit Pistons team. Considering how good they are, they have not gotten to the point where they think they're too good for defense and for the little things, and that's awesome. one of the easiest ways to get turnovers is try to force something on the fast break, but it's also one of the easiest ways to score buckets. So it's a very high risk, high reward sort of deal. Jenkins considers passing it to Cunningham, but that opportunity kind of disappears as soon as Mobley enters the picture, and he's right in the center of your frame. Because he decides to delay and wait, he doesn't force that pass, he actually gets another opportunity presented to him with Thompson, who makes this layup. That's a good sign of a solid point guard or a solid playmaker. Somebody who's not, they might find something, their eyes might go wide, and they might think, wow, that's the best play I could make. But then it's gone, and it ends up in a steal, and ball goes the other end, other team gets a layup. What you want to do is don't force stuff, right? Take things that are given, and in this case, because he's patient, the Pistons still score on the break. Now they're into the fast break. This is semi-transition. Duncan Robinson tries to get something going. Doesn't happen, and they're right into the offense. Starting that off right away. It's really seamless, right? Figure out, okay, we don't have anything. We tried to slash. Let's get right into our offense. Now Thompson's coming up, and we get, a bucket right there. It's just, boom, let's move out to the wings. Let's get our screen and roll actions. Let's just get right into it. That's the best example I think I found of all these clips of how smoothly they just get right into everything. And again, that takes practice, that takes time, and it takes team chemistry. And these guys have been around each other for several years now and have a well-built chemistry, more so than a lot of NBA teams, and it shows. These guys are so good on the fast break. They're really fun to watch. And part of it is because their priority is always to run. Cunningham gets this ball, his eyes immediately go up. He is looking to run. He's looking to sprint up the floor. Because there was just a transition fast break on the other end, there's some players that have fallen behind because now there's a fast break for the Cavs. Now it's flipping back the other way. And it leads to a little cherry picking, so to speak. I wouldn't call it that. I don't think it's intentional. And then Holland gets this layup. That is because the Pistons' priority is let's run the floor as fast as we can. And we immediately get our eyes up. Every guard, whenever they get the rebound, they're grabbing that ball and they're looking to push it up the floor or to run with the basketball to get offensive opportunities because it is the easiest way to score points. This is not a fast break, but it gets treated like a fast break because of how efficient the Pistons are at moving the ball up the floor. Thompson has a great contest, so Bridges misses that that layup. Cunningham's going up the floor. He's keeping his eye on Bridges, but he's looking to pass the ball up the floor because Bridges is behind. And the ball is going to always move faster than players can. So if you can move the ball up the floor fast, you can find openings before the defense can rotate. So Brunson, unfortunately, was standing up here thinking that he's going to guard Cunningham. The problem is Cunningham has, and that's the case. If Cunningham were to, keep going this way, it would be Brunson's responsibility to stop him because Bridges is out of the play. But Bridges is out of the play. So once that pass gets made up here, now what we have is we have a mini 2-on-1 where Thompson's going to move this way, right, up the floor, boom. And now we got one player here and Stewart in the corner. So there's a 2-on-1 situation because Bridges has been pushed out of the play because he hasn't hustled back as hard as he can. He doesn't realize the situation and how fast the Pistons are going to turn this around into something that is beneficial for them. There it is right there. Robinson, I think that's Robinson, has to come over and Stewart with the three. Reed salvages the rebound. Nice stuff. And resets it. He's not forcing a shot. This is great. Smart stuff. Gets it to Cunningham. Now they're immediately in a horn set off of a rebound with 6 seconds to go. A lot of times players will just kind of jack something up at 6 seconds to go. The Pistons are right back into a really cohesive offense. Anunoby gets caught in the screen. Now Reed gets to roll. So Towns has to step up. Reed's rolling and he's left open because in a screen and roll situation, there's no help of the helper here, right? So there is no, Bridges has not fully stepped up to contest right here, or to guard right there because Anunoby is out of the play and behind. And because of that, we end up with a 2-on-1 situation in which this ball's going to come here, and we have one player here, and we'll have Reed here, and Thompson on the backside. That is the reason why screen is so overpowered. It literally just takes a player out of the play defensively for a couple of seconds, and if you're a good offense, that's all you need. And it turns into this really nice floater from Reed right here. Boom. He thinks about passing it, but decides to shoot that little floater. He's in rhythm, gets the roll, good stuff. Reed salvages another play right there, right? Then they're back into the offense again. I like this guy a lot. I like Paul Reed. There's that drive from Cade. Reed cuts on the backside. Nice off-ball movement. So he does two things. He gets an offensive rebound, and he decides to move off-ball, and because of that, he gets a bucket. Defensively, this team cares. They're really active. They're long. They got great hands, and ultimately get little blocks and bits like that. Wanted to point that out because I think that, you know, it's easy to just say they have good defense. I wanted to show it at least once, so there's an example, right? The next play, we get another block. This time, I think it's combined with with Reed and with Jenkins. Flying out for those closeouts. Awesome. Good to see. Tips it, gets a steal. Boom. They're off to the races. They're in the fast break. Get a foul. That is the Pistons in a nutshell. Flying out on closeouts. Active hands. Really smart basketball. Then into the fast break as fast as they can. That sounds a little redundant. Into the fast break and making layups or getting fouled or getting some easy buckets. And that is Pistons basketball for you guys with those 3 games. Just a couple of clips I wanted to pull from. This team moves. They move on offense. They move on defense. Defensively, they're flying out. They're getting good contests. They're getting their hands active. They're playing great defense. And offensively, they're running the fast break like nobody else right now. And they're making off-ball cuts and really smart moves, as well as getting into their offensive sets quickly and seamlessly to the point where it looks like it's free-flowing, but really there's a good amount of foundation that's gone to it. And I think that's a testament to their chemistry, which is super fun to watch. This team is the top of the East. There's a reason for it. And, you know, they might be quite competitive in the playoffs as far as, you know, their ability to potentially win a title if they're able to maintain this kind of momentum going into the next couple of months. But that remains to be seen. With that, guys, that's the end of this video. If you want to see more from me, leave some comments. I do read comments, so if you want to see other teams talked about, that sort of thing, other topics, I'll read them. I can't make any promises, but I do put it into consideration. And I appreciate you guys for getting this far. If you made it this far, please like if you liked the video. Subscribe, because why not? It doesn't cost you anything. And I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.